Gives me time to introduce our next keynote speaker. She's an assistant professor at the Department of Technology and Operations Management at the Rotterdam School of Management, RSM. She's here to talk about the power of platforms. Please welcome to the stage, Jovana Karanovic. And I have the magical device for you.
Thank you.
Here you go, Jovana.
We love platforms, don't we? So much so that it's hard to imagine how we ever lived without them. You know, in those days when you just got back from work and you're too lazy to cook anything, so you go on your takeaway or Deliveroo app, and food is at your doorstep in no time. Or on those days when you're rushing to the airport, the boarding is about to start, and you're carrying 3 suitcases for a 5-day trip, or maybe that's just me, and there's no way bus is going to do it. So you pull up your Bolt or Uber app. Your driver is arriving in 3 minutes. So convenient, right? Or when you're organizing a birthday party, and you just need someone to make a quick graphic design. You go on Upwork or Fiverr, and one of their 12 million freelancers will help you with this simple task. Platforms are everywhere to get you food at your doorstep, a ride, a cleaner, a babysitter, and even a dog sitter. And all that with just a click. But when a click comes through, sophisticated algorithms take over. And some of the tactics they use may shake your values to the core. Powering these platforms is an army of mostly self-employed individuals, the so-called gig workers. The higher the supply, the swifter the service. The competition for market dominance among these platforms is so fierce that this landfill of fallen bike-sharing companies paints 1,000 words. Algorithms give them an edge over traditional companies. And when they optimize for efficiency, algorithms can be extremely useful. But when they optimize solely for profit, people's lives are on the line. In 2020, an Uber driver with 2 years of experience and an average rating of 4.94 was deactivated from the app. From one day to the next, he lost prospect of income he depended on to support his entire family. He claims he contacted Uber over 50 times, but with no success. I suppose the only appeal he could make was to the boss that took the decision. But the algorithm had nothing more to say. In the world where we are being defined by the apps we use, and where the livelihoods of many are increasingly being controlled by algorithms, we have to stop and wonder, at what cost does our convenience come? And as business leaders, we have to consider whether the path to innovation considers the humanity of workers. So, in the next few minutes, I want to take you behind the screen and show you what hides following the click. And then I'm going to present a different possibility. The one with AI is not a source of erosion of the values that we stand for, but a way to amplify them. Algorithms have brought incredible efficiency. Uber has introduced immediacy. It matches you to the driver closest to you. There is no need to call a taxi company, wait in long lines, or even carry cash. It has also minimized the waiting time for drivers, matching them to the closest passenger and making the most of their time. But algorithms can do more than that. They can offer personalization, something suitable just for your needs. Think about TaskRabbit, a marketplace where you can hire a gardener, a babysitter, or an imposter. Yes, an imposter. This woman found herself unable to attend her best friend's birthday party. So she went on TaskRabbit and hired a complete stranger to attend the party in her place. The stranger learned about the stories that the two women shared together and even made jokes about the trips and early school days. The actual friend was not missed at all. The example of Uber and TaskRabbit shows us how useful algorithms can be. But the use of algorithms is a double-edged sword. Consider the forward dispatch algorithm, commonly used by ride-hailing and food delivery platforms. It assigns the driver their next ride while the current one is still in progress. It is designed to minimize the waiting time for passenger and keeps the drivers continuously engaged, or so these platforms claim. But there is another way to look at it. It challenges self-control. The algorithm essentially nudges drivers to work longer than initially intended. And this is often combined with push notifications telling drivers they're just another ride away from making their earnings goal for today. And there is nothing as powerful as internalizing motivation. And you can imagine how problematic this is if a driver has already been driving for long hours and is fatigued and presents a danger to himself and others on the road. But their use of algorithm goes even further. There is no boss deciding on wages. The algorithm is in charge of that too. So many parameters go into the wage calculation. How often is a particular route traveled? What are the traffic conditions? Are there any big events in the city? And even public transportation disruptions. With so many parameters going into wage, it becomes impossible for workers to predict what they're going to earn or even understand how their wages are being calculated. To make the matters even worse, platforms can decide how to design or change their algorithms as they see fit. Instacart is a case in point. Instacart is an American company that operates a grocery delivery service. Allegations arose that the company was using the tips given by customers to express gratitude for service to subsidize wages of workers. This is an example of a Tom who is a courier on Instacart. Tom has worked over an hour and earned $10.80. But out of those, only 80 cents were paid by Instacart because a customer gave a very generous $10 tip, and the algorithm accounted for that. Instacart apologized eventually and changed their policy, but there was a stark price to pay. They lost the trust of consumers, the trust of their workforce, and had to pay a hefty fine. This shows us that the misuse of algorithms is not only ethically wrong, it's bad for business. So, how can we design algorithms with a conscience? Firstly, companies should optimize for welfare. Safety is a problem on platforms, but also distribution on tasks. Usually, top performers reap all the benefits. AI can be used to distribute tasks more equitably. It can also suggest reskilling opportunities, allowing workers to obtain high-value tasks. This can actually lead to a higher worker satisfaction and more sustainable working environments. Secondly, platforms should share control. A number of tasks on Uber don't get completed because the price suggested by algorithm is sometimes deemed as not worth drivers' time, hence they canceled. If drivers had the ability to adjust the price upwards, accounting for their specific costs, such as insurance and fuel, many more rides on Uber would get completed. This would lead to a higher revenue for company and higher earnings for drivers. And finally, platforms should involve the community. Organizing and expressing opinions is extremely difficult for platform workers. A simple problem, such as, for example, on a platform for high-skilled services, if a customer decides he or she is unhappy with the graphic design provided, he or she can refuse to pay. And it's very difficult for a platform worker to get in touch with a human being behind the platform and resolve this issue. But workers can be extremely useful. They're very close to the customer's demands. They understand the tacit preferences of customers. They're great examples of user innovation and improvements suggested directly by workers themselves. AI can be used to solicit feedback from workers, ensuring a more happy and inclusive workplace. But for these benefits to materialize, it is essential that companies approach AI with a strong ethical framework, prioritizing transparency, fairness, and involvement of stakeholders in the decision-making. And when it comes to you, to us, as users of these services, we have power to demand a different kind of platform economy. We can choose to consume differently. Our power lies in that. And in this digitally enabled world, Sometimes all it takes is just a click. Thank you.
Wow. Jovana, shall we do 1 or 2 questions? Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, it felt like a TED Talk. So good. Wow. So in your research, do you find that platforms disagree with these statements, that they say, oh, we are against well-being, or we don't want to give the driver control? Do they subscribe to that point of view?
I think that they had not so much incentive to think in that way, and they were also under the pressure of investors to turn profit. But what we are seeing now is that landscape is changing as well. Regulators or investors are becoming aware of the regulatory pressure the platforms are under, and they're actually demanding the platforms treat workers better, and they're demanding a business model that can stand the test of time.
Right, so it's because of regulations that the investors say, perhaps we should incentivize other things than just money in the algorithm.
Definitely, and we also had cases where workers have revolted because of platforms' misuse of algorithms, and they decided to leave overnight. Maybe you remember Delete Uber campaign that was all over Twitter at the time, where a number of workers had left, and this has actually significantly impacted at the time the revenue of the company. So investors are also seeing that if you have a workforce that's mostly self-employed, they can, in theory, leave overnight.
Right, yeah. Well, I'm so happy that we didn't use TaskRabbit to find someone to give a talk about this. So great job, ladies and gentlemen. Another big round of applause for Jovana. Thank you.